Good morning, everyone. Happy Monday. Let's take a look and see what's going on with Bitcoin for the day. So, on our daily, we had a nice, decent wick to the downside, found sensitivity right around my 63,872 level. That being said, I am actually going to remove this level for right now because that was a 786 and we did bounce off of it. Um, so what does that exactly mean? Well, if we were to come back down here, I would basically be expecting that next level to be tested at 63,322. That would be my next expectation if we were to come back down here. I don't know if we're going to do that this week or next week, but basically I'm keeping these green levels as 786 levels until we actually hit them and get some sort of reaction off of them. So that being said, guys, you're getting that 21 crossing the 50, which is a good sign. You got a nice wick to the downside today, so there's a potential that we have a bullish day, that this flips, right? This does close in about 9 hours and 50 minutes, so definitely have a good enough wick to the downside for us to get a reversal. Just be aware that it is Monday. We don't have any Fed events today, so there is a potential that's going to be very, very choppy, seek and destroy-ish, that type of thing. And what do I mean by seek and destroy? Well, seek and destroy basically describes price action that basically does what it says. It looks and destroys both sides of liquidity, right? Where neither side really makes a true profit. And we kind of are seeing that right now. I mean, we had a wick to the upside, destroying the shorts. We had a wick to the downside, destroying the longs. So just be cautious today, okay? And it could be one of those weeks where we need to be careful in general because of our price action movement on Saturday, okay? Never want to see price move like that on a Saturday, but it is what it is. So now we got to deal with it. Um, looking at the 12-hour, it does look like you have this complex head and shoulders like pattern. So does that mean it's going to break down? It doesn't mean anything at this point, but there's a potential that this week, like I was telling you guys, could be a bearish close. One very good thing that I will tell you is if you take a look at the weekly open right here and kind of where I have my blue line. So my blue line basically represents Monday midnight open. Okay, so it's right above, about $100 above weekly open at 64.7. So we are, trading below it, which is a great sign, right? We don't usually want to see, a lot of trading above it at the beginning of the week. So we didn't get that major pump that I was expecting last night. And I even warned you guys in the Sin City Crypto group that I was expecting a rollover, right? Because if we were going to get up into the 65.7-ish area, I was expecting it to do it right after the new weekly open. I didn't want to see it spend hours just chopping around, hardly doing anything. Especially I wanted it to see get above 65 too if we were going to have a really bearish week. And hitting this and then just basically making that high and then falling. On a positive note, since that didn't happen, there's a still a good chance that we get a bullish week potentially. But I still need to see, what price action does to kind of follow through with this move to the upside. Another positive note for the bulls, you're staying above your 200 MA on the 6 hour. You got the golden cross here with the 50, so it's almost like I told you, a more for sure or for certain move to the upside when that happens. And then you're also getting the 80 to cross over. You're probably eventually going to get the 100 to cross over. So, it does look more of a bullish sentiment as of right now. Um, your 4 hour, again, you're staying above the 21 MA, you're hugging it. That's going to be your, Sammy special, your crypto lifer special right there. Not really any sort of flag that is, a a worthy flag to discuss just yet, but just be aware that, until we lose some of these moving averages, you got to maintain that bullish bias, right? One thing I did just see though, let me see if I can see it better on the 1 hour. I mean, you do have some that, I see both sides here, but you do have some sort of a diamond here. That's kind of forming. I guess this is a little bit of a higher, kind of rounded out though. But, be aware that this does reverse price of the downside if this were to break down. And then that's when you could maybe come and test 63.3 area. So, be aware that it's not all fine and dandy for this morning. I can basically frame price both ways. You know, it's hard because usually by now, it's 7:12 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Usually, when we are at a bullish market, that's when we see price start taking off in the mornings, right? You see this nice draw on liquidity, which was what we had here on the hourly. The problem is that London session kind of did some work. You it put in some work and made that pump. So it's going to be very difficult to read today. I usually don't like to see London make a move like that until New York session, but we basically got this move in the middle of the night. So not fun, right? This candle happened at 7 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, so that was about 4 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. So definitely not a great sign that London did that. So New York can be very choppy, not a lot of follow through. Just kind of keep that in mind. It is definitely safer, I will say for right now, to play the larger time frame. So if you are going to play a time frame, I would say stick to the meso time frame, the 4 hour, the 6 hour, that type of thing. Um, Not a real good day probably for scalps, in my honest opinion. But do what you want with that information. Not financial advice, obviously. I mean, you are getting some sort of 786 bounce right here, it looks like. You'd probably have to pull it from, assuming this wick right here. The only thing is, guys, I mean, you lost the 200, the 15-minute 200 of May, so it's not a great sign. Um, so you have to assume that you go to the 30-minute, and that's already kind of pointing down as well. It just doesn't look great. And then the hourly would be the next stop, which would be 63.9. Yeah, but you came down and tested it. That's the only thing that's kind of tripping me out because late last night you did come down and you got that draw on liquidity. So in theory, I mean, we should get that move back up, but it's just not wanting. I mean, we almost got a golden cross here on the 15. So definitely some weird price action. I would stay off of the smaller time frames for sure today. Um, if you were going to trade, like I said, use the meso time frames of 4 hour, the 6 hour. This is just not high probability type setups here, that are found this morning. So that being said, guys, that's kind of what I'm seeing for right now. Again, like I told you guys, I mean, it's Monday, and also again, there's a good chance that it's going to be a very choppy week because of what happened on Saturday. So just be well aware of that. We could get a major move to the upside, but it's not going to be obvious. They're not going to make it obvious. So let's take a look at our liquidity for right now, though, and basically as far as levels go. As long as we hold 63,940, that's a great sign. I don't want to see us lose that. And in addition to that, I would probably say to the upside, look out for us getting above 64,803, which was Monday midnight open, and then furthermore to 65,186 and 65,705. So let's take a real quick look at liquidity to see where we're at here. Um, so taking a look at liquidity on the 4 hour, I mean, we're right, unfortunately now we're losing at 64,685 level. Um, I do want to see price get back above that. If not, that is going to make me a little bit more bearish of a potential rollover here. So not the best sign in the world. Definitely think that this is going to be, a potential head and shoulders here, unfortunately. But again, like I said, on the meso time frames, you can't really assume that until you lose that 200 MA on the 6 hour and the 4 hour, or at least the 4 hour. Taking a look at the hourly. So hourly, it's weird because we don't really have a bridge of liquidity to the downside as of right now. Unless I really zoom in here. I mean, you took out basically all of that liquidity right here, and you took out this, you made a nice drawdown into this bottom pool of liquidity. So in theory, the 1 hour is spelling a reversal, because you made a 786 retracement. It's just not getting the follow through. So that's just very weird price action, like I said. Um, Let me take a look here. Yeah, 50, even checking off 25x. I mean, I wonder if I aggregate this, if this makes it any more clear here. Not really. Yeah, not really. Um, Weird price action, guys. Let me go into the 15. Yeah, 15 spells out some danger, right? It looks like it's just going to roll over. At least a 63.9. Is that a 786 right here? Let's see. Not really, unless you pull from the bottom, probably. Yeah, you'd have to pull from the bottom. So, that being said, there's a potential we could bounce from 63.9. Don't completely count on it, though. It's just, yeah, this is really strange. We'd have to basically bounce from here if we're going to get any sort of bounce, I would say, this little area of liquidity. If not, it's just going to roll over into here, taking out, and possibly a good setup for a long might be around 63.3 or 60. This will even go down to 63.3. Let's see. 63.3 is right around here. So maybe taking out these two pulls if we were to make that low there. One interesting thing is we kind of did some cat ears here overnight and then it just reversed. So taking a look at the 5 minute. So 5 minute. Yeah, it's just not really spelling out, what it's trying to do here. I hate to short this because it's time for it to reverse. And so it is confusing me quite a bit because normally at this time you want to see a reversal, not usually a follow through just yet. So this timing wise, it is very confusing. Your trend if is showing a neutral everywhere. Yeah, what weird. This is just weird. Um, Anyways, guys, just be very careful today. Like I said, if you are going to take a trade, do it on the bigger time frames. I would not mess with the smaller stuff right now. As far as your order book goes, with through pin market here, you do have orders down to 63,325. Um, and it looks like you also have orders to the upside to about 65.5. So it's really spelling out that it could go either way, unfortunately. Like I said, guys, if you are gonna take a position, by playing the larger time frames, you can basically protect yourself underneath some of these levels here. That would probably be the best case scenario, honestly. Yeah, this is just so strange. Um, I would say do that, and you could potentially. The only problem is you're not going to really get a 3-to-1. You'd maybe get a 2-to-1 at the most, but you'd probably have to target around 65.7, 65.8 as your top. Unfortunately, and then have your stop below like 63, 325. It's more of like a 1-to-1, unfortunately. But if you wanted to try to make money in this market, I mean, it's better to be protected than to not be, right? So just kind of be aware of that, guys. Again, I'm seeing it both. It could go both directions, and once it hits one of these areas, it's probably going to just reverse and wreck the other side. Let me take a real quick look at our simple map here. So the simple map does show that we are right above the long liquidity, so we could easily just kind of plow through some of this at least up until about 63,690, um, before we can maybe get a reversal to the upside. But yeah, it's not looking great. We do need some more short liquidity to build up here in order to kind of get more of that move up, I would say. But again, this is very low volume, even to like the downside. Like you're under $1 million here of longs. Um, so it's gonna be very reckless probably for this week. Same with the swing time frames. It is framing that you're gonna get at least some bit of a move to the downside before you can move up. But again, it could just keep in mind, guys, it could literally flip at any given time. So just because we're going to the downside right now, it could literally reverse on a dime and just start heading back up, with this type of price action. So be very cautious with how you're trading this, okay? All right, that being said, guys, that is what I have for you this morning. Watch out for that 63.7, 63.3 area still. That would basically be kind of double bottoming here. And then obviously when it comes to the upside, I would say watch for your 65.5, 65.7-ish area. And that's pretty much it. I don't see anything else. It is going to be, like I said, quite choppy price action for today. So just keep that in mind. But with that being said, guys, I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I will talk to you later on this afternoon. Take care.